Tonight, I have with me Dr. Stephan Esser, who is a physician. He's an author, a motivational speaker. Oh my God, if you've not seen him, he's amazing. I saw him several times at the National Health Association, and he just has this joie de vivre in his presentations. He's just got such a twinkle and a sparkle in his presentation. I digress, excuse me. I do that sometimes. But he specializes in sports medicine and lifestyle modification. Prior to his career in medicine, he was a competitive tennis player, achieving a #1 rank in the U.S. men's open doubles. And he's currently co-founder and director of Esser Health in Florida. So Dr. Esser, thank you so much for taking time to be with me here today.
It's a pleasure to be with you today and support all the good work you're doing.
Well, thank you. You were truly blessed to have a grandparent who was so knowledgeable. I mean, your grandfather, Dr. William Esser, was the co-founder of the NHA, that's the National Health Association, and if anybody's not a member, you need to be. He was the owner of the Esser Health Ranch in Florida. Your grandfather wrote various articles and essays. Most were published with, Dr. Shelton's Hygienic Review, and he also was a founding member of the National Health Association. Share with us some of your earliest memories, perhaps your fondest memories of your grandfather.
My grandfather was a very special man, filled with great faith and filled with great compassion and passion for life and for helping others. And I think, so those virtues that he possessed and he expressed every day were helpful for so many thousands of people. And, kind of growing up in the midst of seeing him, living out every day his passion, his vocation for helping people was truly instrumental in my upbringing. I think one of the most beautiful things that I saw in my grandfather was that he truly lived what he preached, and a life of discipline, of moderation, and a life that was driven toward the goal of excellent health and optimal well-being. So it was certainly a blessing to have him as a grandfather.
Oh my gosh. And you had to have grown up with the National Health Association. What impact did that have on your life?
Radical, as one might imagine, right? I mean, being raised in a setting where health was a priority, and health was something that was worked on every day by every member of the family, and in which a family created an environment that promoted health for all of the children, et cetera. It was just outstanding to be raised in that setting, and obviously be surrounded by education about issues related to health, and to hear kind of dialogues and discussions throughout my life. Some of my favorite memories of my grandfather, he was a remarkable orator and a remarkable speaker. And so he did a free lecture every Sunday morning. And I'd sit in the very back of his lectures at the ranch and just, listen to him speak. And although at the time as a young boy, I just wanted to run outside and play and pick mangoes off the trees, etc., I still remember so well his delivery of the information with such passion. And also the stories day in and day out of people coming up saying how he had radically changed their lives and their families' lives. And I think that's really the goal I know that you have, to touch people's lives and transform them for good. And each of us in our own way, that should really be our ministry, our goal to transform first our circles of influence, and then moving outward from there into communities and cultures and so on and so forth.
Well, you currently are co-founder and director of the Esser Health in Florida. Could you tell us what your program is like?
Yeah, so a lot of my outreach that I do is about empowerment, and education really is the heart of it. So I spend much of my day caring for patients in a sports medicine clinic, in which I try to integrate lifestyle medicine and healthy living. But then all the work through Esser Health is geared, as I mentioned, toward expanding and progressing the message of healthy living. So we do different things. We have seminars on a regular basis, both here as well as nationally. And then we have online resources that are growing and developing. A whole new site is about to come out in the next couple months. And then we also do immersion experiences for people who'd like to have that. So, there are many different ways to learn and many different ways to experience, and always trying to come up with ways to help people in the way they learn and experience best to achieve their best health.
Wow. Well, how was it? I mean, you were raised whole food, plant-based, right? SOS? I mean, did you find it hard?
No, I think what we did is, first of all, we were very blessed to have many members of our family who were eating all this exact same way. So all the big celebrations of birthdays and Christmases and, Thanksgivings, et cetera, were all built around food, as they are for most families, but the food that was provided was health promoting food. So, when you have aunts, uncles, cousins, et cetera, all bringing excellent and healthy meals, it's pretty easy to be, healthy. And that speaks to the fact that once we get enough people changing their lives and their behaviors, all of a sudden it becomes much, quote, simpler to eat that way. And so growing up as a child, we were taught very early on that when you begin to eat unhealthy food, unhealthy things occur to you, right? So for example, any time of year that we'd have a little bit of ice cream and cookies or that sort of food, very quickly we'd get sniffles and colds and coughs, which we never had any other time of the year, and would recognize that relationship as was pointed out to us by our parents and my grandfather, et cetera. And so it becomes sort of secondhand to you that health comes from healthy living. It's a very basic premise. And once you feel and experience it as a young child, you recognize that. And certainly there's a level of indoctrination that occurs and should occur to all children, indoctrination with health and what it means. And so, our parents would drive by fast food places like McDonald's and others and say, that is food for people who don't have money or people who aren't educated. I mean, pretty straightforward. That's not meant for us to eat. And the only time we'd ever go into a fast food place was maybe to use the bathroom on a long trip when there was no rest area, So really that was just built into us. And they also, we spent time watching all the old videos that used to come out, Dr. Clapper's great Diet for All Reasons and others like it, that again, further educated us. And I think that firsthand experience is the most powerful educator. And then secondary to that is learning the facts and the figures and the statistics and the influence. And so in addition, our family made it fun and playful and enjoyable and taught us how to prepare food, how to make meals, how to, all of the important key elements. It's not enough just to know it's good for you or good for the planet. You've got to know how to get the food, where to get the food, how to prepare the food, and really develop a love affair with healthy living. And that's what it should be. We should all be passionate, excited about eating healthy food because it gives us the energy and the health to then live a vital, energetic, wonderful life. And people sometimes mistake the momentary dopamine high of eating unhealthy food as the end goal. And that's not the end goal at all. And so we need to make sure that we're rewriting our neurologic sort of history in a way that moves us in a positive direction of health always. And so for me, again, I had that hard networking that was laid down, right? Those rich fibers for years. So even when I went off to college, let's say, and saw I still remember my mother went to college with me for the meeting with the cafeteria director, the head chef, and said, we want to make sure our son is going to have excellent food while he's here. Can he go into the refrigeration area and select specific fruits and vegetables, whenever he wants? And they worked it out for me to be able to get what I wanted and how I wanted it. And
really?
Yeah, absolutely. And, and so the reality becomes, right, is that at the heart of it, those who provide us with food want us to be happy because we're more likely to come back and purchase more of their product, right? Especially in a restaurant or things like that. So when you give feedback somewhere, you're more likely, especially over time, if you're a paying customer, right, to get their attention. And if you do it in a positive way, you can have positive results. So nevertheless, we all can get into areas where we start eating less than ideally. And when you do that, you begin to feel unwell. And that's the reinforcement to go back to the healthy living again as a reminder.
Well, like growing up, you went to a birthday party. Did you have like the cake and ice cream that was served there?
No, so our family did not. And I think there are two ways that, healthy plant-based families can do it. One is they can say, well, this is only at such and such birthday party or gathering, fine, not a big deal. In my family it's a little different because my family were leaders in this field, right? And so for us to go out and eat that sort of food is almost it comes off as a sense of hypocrisy. And that, oh, wow, well, you say that, it's, and then you're doing this. Well, what's the deal? So I think what our family did so well is a couple of things. Number one is they'd make sure you ate food before you went to a party. So you were already full, right? Number one. And number two is they would often bring food there so that there was food available to you if you wanted some while you were there. Number three is every once in a while they let you suffer a little and recognize that, going without food for a couple hours is not going to kill you. And you're going to make it. So for me, I think our family, what we've chosen to do with our children is that we have said, we're going to feed them before we go. maybe give them even some few healthy treats on the drive over, so they got some of that, or say that they're going to get healthy treats on the way back, right? Maybe we're going to stop for a fruit sorbet somewhere or something of that kind. And in addition, bringing to these parties some healthy options, like a big fruit salad, right? Like slices of watermelon, whatever it might be, so that at least we're bringing something health promoting to the gathering. But there's so many ways you can address it. And I think once your friends and family members recognize that, we went to a party the other day, hadn't said a thing. We get there and the hostess was so excited. She's like, look what I made for your children and for you guys. Da, 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 da. And I was like, oh, that's so wonderful. Thank you.
Really?
Sweet of you. Yeah. Well, I mean, because again, the same idea, right? Your friends want to see you happy. They want to be good hosts and hostesses. So long as you presented the message with joy and encouragement, not that you're just a negative Nelly, right, kind of a thing. Mm. And the reality is, that's the beauty of it, right? We start seeing those people are making changes themselves and saying, yeah, hey, look, I got the dairy-free this, or I got a big bowl of fruit for you guys, or I got this. I mean, that's wonderful. Yeah. So no, now that's different. There's some people I think that struggle more, especially as children with this. I remember one of my uncles who was raised this way, and I remember him saying how the abuse he took from children at school was so severe that he would like hide in the playground and eat his food by himself. And that's hard, right? That can be very challenging for some people, the social pressures there. Now, my family taught us things, for example, like if you were eating a date and somebody made fun of you, you were to turn to them and say, it's actually a dried cockroach. You want one? Right? And they'd go be like, ew, no, it's not. Like the little kids, they say, no, it's not. And I go, yes, it is. And they're like, and then I pop it in my mouth, right? And spite them even more. And then they go, oh, I want one. Let me try it, right? Kind of thing. So, and that continued all through even into college for me, where people would make fun of my big bowls of fruit. But then as soon as I brought them in, hey, can I have some of your grapes? Hey, that pear looks good. Hey, I haven't had that. What's that? What type of fruit is that? Can I try it? And so, it's fascinating because isn't it how it is with humans? They often make fun, they harass, and then that's they're testing the waters a little. But if you're strong and confident in what you're doing, you can quickly win them to your side, and then they're interested and engaged. But if you immediately wilt to the pressure, then, well, there you go. Nothing got changed for good. My feeling is the following. If we truly believe that plant-based nutrition is not only good for humans, but is also good for animals, and is also good for the planet, well, then we should all be comfortable with some adversity. And if our children can't handle being made fun of for eating a piece of lettuce or spinach or a banana, they've got problems. Those kids need to toughen up, because the reality is if they can't hold on to their guns for that little moment, well, how are they going to do with every other factor of life where they're made fun of, harassed, try this drug, come have this sexual experience, do this criminal behavior, whatever it might be. If they can't even stand up for eating some fruit, they're never going to be able to stand up to that. So, I mean, it's a good learning ground. And, we're not looking for perfection in any of us, are we? We should be looking for excellence. And that's the key. So we've all had the candy bar or the junk food or whatever. And the reality is, like for me, I never had any of that until I was in my teenage years or older. And I just wouldn't feel good. I go, ew, why am I even eating this? I'm eating it because somebody told me I should want it, that I should want it. But I really don't. And so that's what I realized for myself in college. It'd be like, ooh, unlimited ice cream, right? Coming out of that soft serve. And so you'd go up and you'd load up a couple times and I'd eat it. And boy, I'd feel horrible. And I started realizing, what am I doing? I don't even want this for real. I mean, I want it because I'm not supposed to have it, right? So there's that temptation sort of feeling, but really, I don't really want it. And so once you begin to have that conversation in your brain enough, you can rewire kind of your what you really want, what you really crave. Yeah.
Well, did you have, was it immediate? Like you had
absolutely. I mean, I'd eat the ice cream. You feel that little in the back of your throat that you're like, well, that wasn't there earlier. And then the next morning you wake up and you're a little sniffly, and then a day or two later, all of a sudden you're noticing, wow, you never had acne and you're starting to get a little acne or things like that from all that dairy and sugar. And you go, oh, no. This isn't right. Where's my greens, right? So very quickly in college, that's where I said, I bought myself a little juicer in my room and I was that guy in there juicing. What's that noise? It's Esser, he's making juice, And
you brought a juicer to college?
Absolutely. You got to bring your best friend with you. Come on now. So, and that's the beauty. I mean, it's because what I would do is I'd buy some stuff at the farmer's market, and then these kids would walk down the hall and they'd be like, hey, you want to try some fresh ginger carrot apple? They're like, what? What's that?
Yeah,
that's like, wow, that's fresh. That's good. Remember, this is decades ago. So this is before, kind of all of the faddism of fresh sweet juices, the cold pressed juices. None of that was in Publix 20-some years ago when I went to college. So it was fun to have that. And that's what I continue to do. That's what people laugh and have a good time, because like even at work, I'll walk in and go, so these are blank, right? The special fruit maybe I brought, right? That nobody's tried, and I'm slicing it in pieces and walking down the hall and having different office members try it. And that's a good memory for them. That's a good experience of something unique and different that they're not accustomed to. And so sharing that, I mean, that's what's fun, right? I mean, that's the beauty of plant-based nutrition, is there's so much variety, there's so much color, there's so many textures, so many unique things to try. It's not all just pasta and cheese, right? Dead animal and random sauce on it. I mean, there's so much. And
there is. The variety.
That's what's fun. Yeah. So
I mean, I got tired of people going, so you're plant-based, what do you eat? Like grass clippings, tree bark? What are we talking here? And I'm like, no, I save that for special occasions.
That's right.
And
exactly.
so I got tired of people doing that. So I made a video, and I used Kim Campbell, who's got some fabulous pictures of food, and I put it together in like a 3-minute video, and just a picture. And there was like 300 pictures in there. Yeah, and the variety is just endless. I mean, it's just ongoing. It's incredible. But I love how you've got this playful side to you. And if you've not seen this on his Facebook page, he's going zip-lining across on his way to work.
Oh, I gotta go, I'm running late.
You see him go zip-line across, carrying his briefcase when you gotta go to work.
That's right. Life, you and I both agree on this. I think we need, all of us, to inject more merriment, more joy, more, happiness into life. And there's so many minds right now, so many people focused on the negative, focused on the imperfections, focused on insecurities. And I think it's time that we back away from that a little bit. Why? Because the whole idea, right, that our minds can make a heaven of hell or a hell of heaven. And our emotions can become our reality, right? And it's so crucial that you and I every day are running the neural networks in a way that is reinforcing the greater goal that we want to be. And I talk a lot about this, in, like you mentioned, the videos that I do on Esser Health on Instagram or Esser Health on Facebook, is that our personal sort of perceptions of reality radically influence our behaviors. And so it's so crucial that as we sit down to this big, delightful salad we're about to eat with slices of, let's say, some fresh plums and apricots as dessert, that we're stopping, A, inhaling the aroma, B, just meditating on the beauty and the colors and the textures, and thinking then, I like to close my eyes and go, wow, where did this grow? And what was it around? And what was it like? And, the beauty of the discovery of this. Why? Because we need to make sure that we're not sitting there looking at salad and going, oh, I wish so much that I had the blank, right? That I could have that hoagie with triple cheese. And it's like, why?
Right.
Why? So you want some dead thing that was processed and produced in a random place and, loaded with who knows what and stuff it in your body? Like, no, there's no romance there. I mean, we've tried in our culture to create a romance about meat and dairy, but when you actually strip that away, you recognize it's a falsity. It's a falsehood. It is intended to mask the horrible brutality of killing animals, right?
God.
And of
It's
sacrificing them, etc.
It's so bad.
Yeah. So, I think this, in a similar way in our culture, we're seeing all these horrible things about sexual abuse and sexual trafficking and all this stuff. Well, we've glamorized, right, illegitimate sexual behaviors as though they're these amazing, wonderful, entertaining things to go out. And then when bad things suddenly, when we pull away the curtain and we see all of this sexual abuse and sexual trafficking, we go, well, where did this come from? How is this possible? And it's because we pulled this curtain on where it all comes from. And the same idea with the meat consumption all the rest. There was a fascinating speaker at VegFest a couple of years ago. Maybe you heard her, and she's written multiple books on this interplay between, I had never thought much of it, but between this sort of objectification of women and the meat industry, and how there was this overlap between the brutality, the violence, the objectification, the physicality, the control. And at first, as a guy, I was like, oh, come on, please. But then as I kind of thought about it more and looked at it more, I was like, yeah, there's a lot of truth there. And I think it's so crucial if we really want to change the world for good, that food and exercise and nutrition and emotions are a great place, and that it can expand and explode as you begin to allow that vulnerability, that peace-mindedness, that desire for joy, that desire for empathy and all the rest. You begin to apply it in your whole life, it can radically change the world. And that's what we should all be doing. I mean, I think it's a life-altering place. Now, for those of you who are worried by me saying that, I'll just say, hey, just start eating the food first. Don't worry about the rest. You don't have to join a cult, okay?
Right, right.
But I really think they go well hand in hand. Mutual respect, not only for each other, right, for the animals, for the planet, for everything. I mean, it goes hand in hand with excellent nutrition because it's how it's meant to be.
Right. And we're on a train wreck. I mean, right now for this planet, I mean, we just can't sustain what we're doing.
Yeah.
If for anybody who's been out there who's, knows the story of like Easter Island, that's kind of like we're a big Easter Island right now, and we're heading for destruction because we just can't sustain what we're doing. We just can't do it. So going plant-based is going to be one of our ways to help us to change our planet's health destiny.
Very powerful.
So, yeah. Well, your grandfather had, for 50 years, he operated the Esser Ranch. Share the history of this place. I mean, hanging out there growing up. I mean,
right. So actually 65 years, but what he did is he started up in Connecticut, and first in actually Pittsburgh, and then he moved to the Connecticut area. And then he moved to South Carolina and had a big plantation there that he had rented for several years. And then eventually moved to Lake Worth, to South Florida in the West Palm Beach area. And there were 10 acres and a bunch of buildings all over it with big sanitarium sort of sunbathing areas as well that were protected by big 8-foot fences around that you couldn't see through, big walls where people could go and sunbathe, and tennis courts for people to play tennis. And several acres, about 6 total acres of nothing but mango trees, an organic 1-acre garden, a big, organic tropical fruit garden with all variety of different fun fruits like grumichamas and japoticabas and fun things with unique names. And, so growing up there, it was a land of miracles. I mean, it was so much fun to grow up, kind of playing in the mango trees, of course, et cetera. But then as I grew older, assisting with things, carrying food plates to patients' rooms, going and filling up water jugs. And then when I was older, I also helped in the kitchen for about a year or two. I did all the purchasing of food and preparation of food. And it was just gorgeous to see people change because, so radical change in food and what we do results in radical changes in health. And again and again and again and again, universally almost, kind of reproducibly again and again. And so the beauty is to see these changes firsthand. And so many people make small changes in their life. And I'm here to tell you, that's nice. I mean, it's good you're making small changes, but I'm far more of a big change guy that results in big results that is then motivational to you long term and lets you know how amazing it can feel, right? Like we have a 4-week detox I often put people on of just fruits, veggies, beans, and rice. And, the average man loses 20 to 40 pounds and women 15 to 25 in 4 weeks of just eating fruits and vegetables. And, it's just, that's the sort of stuff we're talking about. And unfortunately in our society, too many people make small changes. They take the cookies and the cakes and a little alcohol out. They don't lose a lot of weight. They feel deprived and then they get depressed and they go right back to the comfort foods. And so it's this little yo-yo action that occurs instead of going on a sustainable, long-term, healthy program that's loaded with lots of food, but lots of micronutrient, calorie-poor foods, and as a result, you lose lots of weight. So growing up at the ranch, I mean, it was a land of miracles, people day in and day out, reversing chronic diseases, improving their overall health, feeling more energetic. I mean, people coming on 25, 30 meds and staying there for a month or two and getting off everything. And it was just beautiful to see. And a reminder to me of how powerful simple things can be. Which was a surprise, though, because then I went to med school and I learned none of this. And I thought, wow, this was all voodoo that I grew up with. But then I started looking at the medical literature, and you start looking, you study after study after study validating what we're talking about. And so the reality comes down to that this type of medicine is not presented to the public because it does not make money for the practitioner, which is very important to remember because doctors come out several $100,000s in debt. And if they cannot make money off of prescribing steamed broccoli and brown rice, that's really not going to help them stay out of the poorhouse, right? Number 2 is they don't learn any of this. So since they haven't learned it, they can't apply it. And number 3 is the simple fact that it does not stroke their ego. Right? So if you go to see a doctor who says, well, I can give you a pill, no one else can give you this because only I can because of my certifications, et cetera, it kind of validates my medical degree. But if I tell you to do something that your grandmother told you could do, how does that validate me? Right? So, I mean, I think it's important because we as physicians can get stuck on our egos. And as a result, we want to do things that are special and unique. And so it doesn't make us feel very special to tell people to eat fruits and vegetables. There are a lot of reasons, right, why doctors don't talk about this. And the good news is more and more doctors are, and that's exciting.
Your training, did you get any nutrition at all?
Oh, of course. We learned about beriberi, and we learned about scurvy, and we learned about kwashiorkor and marasmus, diseases of sub-Saharan Africa. And that's what doctors learn about. So there are no programs that teach you about reversing diabetes through food. There are no programs that teach you about reversing heart disease through food. And if they do, it is very much in the style of, well, this study was once done, but patients won't do this. So now let's learn about what really they will do. And so...
Well, as you were going through medical school, were you that guy that's like, hey, this isn't going to work? Were you, did you bother to even try and educate them?
Well, I was the guy actually. So it's funny because, Dr. McDougall, I remember talking to him years ago before I went off to med school. And he's like, well, just keep your head down, son, and, get through kind of a thing. And I said, yeah, not me. That's not going to be me. So when I went to medical school, I was the guy who made incredibly loud amounts of noise. I mean, the day one, there was a big picnic and it was a barbecue. And they had a barbecue and there was not one iota of salad anywhere except for maybe the iceberg that you put on your burger. And I walked up to the dean, and this is like day one or day two. And I walk up to the dean and I go, Dean, I said, it's weird. I read the other day that the #1 cause of death in America is heart disease. And I heard that salad's good for that, but I don't see any salad out here. And I said, since we're in med school, wouldn't it make sense for us to actually have a salad at the barbecue? And he looks at me and he's like, I could just tell he was like, oh, this guy's going to be trouble for me for 4 years.
I can see right now.
But hey, the next barbecue, there was a massive salad. I was like, sweet, there we go. And they recognized that I was going to be an ally, but also somewhat of trouble. But they just... so what happened? So they encouraged me. I started up a preventive medicine interest group. I had speakers come in all the time and do talks. I had food that was provided, big salads and fresh fruits and veggies for all the students, etc. I had a newsletter that I started with the overlying support of the school that was all about healthy living, right? In which I would go through different topics. I'd interview students. I'd do fun, silly things to get their attention. And that to this day, that newsletter had survived, which was great. So I got their support because they know this, right? But the challenge is, this is the Titanic, isn't it? So the Titanic doesn't turn easily. And so unless you come with huge energy and huge positivity, things don't happen. And so that's the problem that a lot of doctors do. Even the doctors who are well-intentioned come with negativity and no creativity. Because you want to remember, here's the reality. Doctors, even today with lifestyle medicine, are trying to use the system, which is meant all about drugs, right? 5.5-minute visits, to try to squeeze in healthy living. It doesn't work. It's not meant for that system. And so, you go to the lifestyle medicine conferences for doctors and they're talking about reimbursement and how to make it. I'm like, this isn't going to work. Right? Doctor, that's not what's going to, who cares? Yeah, we need to worry about reimbursement, but we need to worry about what actually works for patients and radically changes the world. And, we just need to make it happen. But you want to remember, so here's the problem. Doctors come to medical school with wide open eyes and excitement and enthusiasm, and then we get multiple choice tests. Our entire 4 years is multiple choice. In other words, no creativity, no thinking outside the box. This is purely A, B, C, or D are your options. What's your option? And there's one that's right. Every test. So we are not encouraged to be creative or think outside the box or actually try to fix anything. So who are the fixers? The fixers are going to be the business people, the administrators. And what are their goals? Finances and reimbursement. It is not about really looking at what really works. Because here's the other problem, right? So at a hospital, they go, well, what works? And then when they go to look at what works, they go, well, wait a second, but we can't get too radical because patients will review the food negatively. And if we get bad food, sort of ratings, then it brings down our stars, our number of stars for our hospital, which then pulls funding and blah, blah. I mean, it's outrageous, the stuff that goes on. Instead of what we should be saying, right, as a medical culture is, here's what the science says, here's how we're going to apply it. Sorry if you don't like it. Now let's, and then let's move forward from there. Because there are always going to be those people who, when you tell them, stop smoking, it's bad for you, they go, well, forgive the French, screw you, I'm going to keep smoking, I want to do this. And if you say you can't smoke on the grounds, they get angry and mad and all the rest, right? But that's what we've gotten to now is smoking. I think one day we will get there with food and exercise and all the rest. We're moving in a positive direction. I
hope so.
Oh yeah, we're better than we were. It's getting there. But we need to all keep every aspect of our kind of culture. Everybody needs to be moving their little block ahead where they are. right? And so
And
when I was in med school, that's what I tried to do. Yeah.
right. No, for sure. And kudos to you, because I know like people, like one of my students actually went off to school, and she didn't go to med school, but she went to become a registered dietitian.
Mm-hmm.
And she started to try and talk and explain and talk about, whole food, plant-based, and she got shot down.
Right.
And so she quickly learned to just shut up. I mean, she understands about the whole food, plant-based lifestyle, but she just stopped trying to do that. She almost like felt like she was being singled out, and there was like a lot of negativity coming at her.
Oh yeah, no, the
So,
amount of, I mean, the stories I could tell you of the things that I went through both in medical school and residency with harassment and, verbal abuse and all the rest is just unbelievable. But, at some point, like for example, I threw a big party to get all my medical student friends to come over and to put together a platform that we thought could help adolescent children in the Tampa Bay area to help begin to reduce obesity. And I said, let's get together, create a task force, all this. And when the party was supposed to go on, little did people know that I had to cancel last minute. So I had emailed all the people who were supposed to come who had RSVP'd, but the other people didn't know that. And here, other students, as a joke, sent like 6 triple meat cheese pizzas with 5 Cokes to my door, right? Delivered, right? Paid for that just to mock me. Unbelievable, right? That's just the beginning. That's nothing, right? But that's the sort of stuff that these doctors and future, medical students, residents, etc. would do. And so, to me, though, it's laughable because why? Because I know the science is so radically, completely, and entirely in our favor. Right. So when I would bring something up, if somebody started like challenging it, I'd immediately just go here, and I'd pull out 5 studies printed, hand it to them, and go, look at those and let me know. Those are from a little, magazine you've probably never heard of called JAMA or the New England Journal of Medicine or Lancet. Once you review it, let me know your thoughts and we can talk more. So people stopped arguing with me after a while because they'd just be like, I know there's probably lots of science, but we don't want to do it. So that's what they'd finally come to. And that's okay, right? We can all come to that point, but we need to shut down the nonsense because there's so much nonsense. It's silly, right? Where people, well, this and that. So I just go, look, the data is so robust for the common diseases, right? Your diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, et cetera. It's just silly to argue about it anymore. And so, yes, here's the science, here's the data. That's why for me, I've started moving a lot more toward the emotions, the thought processes, et cetera, because I recognize there's a percentage of people who truly it is the science. Most of the people, they just throw out the science card because they think it'll shut you down because they don't know it's there. But once you go, here it is, oh, but blank, then they go on to the next issue. And so it's just kind of like they're throwing down a quick speed bump almost in hopes that you'll stop.
Right.
So, and I have different ways of going about that, and all of us should, right? The person who's well-intentioned, who really wants to argue with you and debate you, and they're well-intentioned, bring them all the science, bring them all the data, right? Because you may win them over slowly. But the person who's just obnoxious and no matter what is never going to, abide by what you're saying and follow with you, don't even waste your time. That's where you give them the saucy little funny comments and the whatever else, and you throw them a book. Say, hey, go read How Not to Die, right? Go read, the Truth About Diabetes by Furman. Go read this, go read that. The studies are all there. And let me know once you've seen it, right? Or watch the video, right? Like Eating You Alive, right? Once you watch the movie, come back and chat with me. Would love to chat with you. So, you choose your audience, where the person is in their processes.
Trying to argue with paleo people or keto people? Oh my God. Right. Wow. Yeah. I don't even bother anymore. It's like, they know it. They've got the facts. And it's like, you might want to be looking at that long-term and see what that's going to be doing to your health there. Well, and that classic McDougall line, right? Of people like to hear good things about their bad habits. I mean, that's just the reality. And so, I mean, it's foolishness. This is, like you're bringing up the paleo and ketogenic diets. It's just a regurgitation of things that have not worked in a new set of clothing. And, the reality comes down to the following. I think this is where all the international science is very clear, that the majority of us, the majority of the time, should be eating largely minimally processed whole plant-based foods. We can then argue about the periphery. Do you want to have a slice of baked chicken here and there, or a piece of this here and there? That's fine, but that's for another day. What we need to start with first is the fact that in America, fewer than 8% of total calories comes from fruits and vegetables. I know. That's a problem. So we need to stop arguing and confusing all of the people out there with all of this other micronutrient and lab data and and say, look, the data is clear. Eat more fruits and vegetables. Once you're doing that, 50% or so of your calories at least are from fruits, veggies, simple then let's talk about the details.
And that's where even the federal government, you look at their plate, right? 3/4 of it is nothing but plant-based matter. It's the fruits, the vegetables, and the whole grains. And, and that little quarter piece ends up being some form of protein. But, yeah, it's silly. Yeah.
I know, but the food industry has hijacked our brains. I mean, literally, they have. I mean, they've upped the amount, and I compare it to the tobacco industry, where they were literally putting more nicotine into the cigarettes. And also, I don't know if you know this, but nicotine or tobacco was cured with sugar to make it more palatable to our lungs. Because if you just took tobacco smoke and tried to inhale it, you'd be coughing it out because your lungs are like, this just is not good, period. So they started upping the amount of sugar that they were using in the curing process. And then they started adding a lot more nicotine to it. And I think the food industry is doing the same thing. They've, my husband has a great term for it. He calls it turbocharging the food, and putting in, additional amounts of fat, sugar, salt. I mean, there's a fabulous book by Michael Moss, fat, sugar, salt. And he did an expose on the food industry, which is fabulous.
Well, I think it's fascinating when you think about it because, what you're commenting on is those foods are what I consider as hyper-palatable foods, right? They're, or you can call them food-like substances of addiction, is another phrase.
It's true.
To me, and that's what I've done with my brain, though, is begun to say, when I walk by those food-like substances, I say that. That's not food. That's a food-like substance. And I can say it's been crafted quite beautifully. Look at how gorgeous the colors of that cake are and how the details that chef put into that. That is so much fun. I love it, right? But it's the same as any, little architectural structure. If there's a sculpture, etc., I would never say, well, let me chew on that sculpture. I'd look at it and say, that's quite a pretty little thing. And I'd leave it there. And I'd admire the craftsmanship that went into it,
Yes, but when it does bang your pleasure center, oh my gosh. I mean, and that's one of the hardest things is to break that. Because and I know Neil talked about this in terms of his presentation at the National Health Association. He talked about, he was doing 2 studies, and both the 2 groups that he was looking at, one was following a whole food plant-based, and another one I think was following for, the standard diabetes diet. And both groups had a subset of people that were having a hard time following it. And, they were all had the same genetic profile. And I'm like, that's my family. And, growing up, just having that stuff banging your head, your pleasure center again and again and again, it's so hard. And so, I've changed. But my husband came home one night and he brought home a little bag of nuts. And it was, good nut, raw, no oil, no salt. Okay, so it was raw and it had some dark chocolate in there. So overall, not a bad thing in terms of eating. He opened up and he said, "You've been doing so good." He opened the bag and poured it into my hand. And it was a small little bag.
Right.
And my brain lit up like, I call it my inner raccoon. And because if you've ever seen a raccoon,
right,
they're going to get whatever they want. And when my inner raccoon comes out, don't get between me and the food because, you'll get hurt. And immediately I ate it because he poured it in my hand and then he walked away. Now, my husband does not have this food addiction issue.
Right.
He can leave a piece of chocolate and walk away and come back in 3 months.
Right.
And pull that out of his drawer. Are you kidding me? No, that's not going to happen. So he lit my brain up like that. And as soon as I finished that little thing, I went down and I'm like, "Do you have any more?" Like a true addict. And he's like, "Well, I think I might have another bag up in the corner." I'm like, "Go get it right now, please."
Right.
And he got it for me. And then what do you think for the next week? Every time he came home, "Hi, you have anything?" Right. It took a week for my brain to calm back down.
Yeah. No, and I think you bring up a really good point. I think, so there's going to be a subset of people that truly have an addictive personality, might say, and then a group of people who do not have that addictive personality, right? And so for the person who knows, I am an addict, I have struggled with this, right, with this food addiction, et cetera, it is absolutely essential that they set their life up in such a way that they are in a safe place, if you will, right, that keeps them away from those addictive patterns and from those addictive behaviors. Because, right, we know this with the alcoholic, we know this with the methamphetamine addict, et cetera. that despite their, well-intentioned choices and decisions, if the environment sets them up for failure, they will go down that path.
Oh,
And,
absolutely.
so I think that's one part. And the other part is I think that we live in a culture right now in which, so we need to remember that our neurologic networks were laid down millennia ago at a time when dopamine was all about survival. And so whether it be the sexual high in which, right, we were giving life to the next generation, and so our tribe would survive, or whether it be in the various foods, the richer they were, the more calorie dense, if we ate them, we'd survive longer, right? Rather than, trimming the grass with our teeth, right? We wouldn't survive very long back then. But now we live in a culture in which dopamine is available at every street corner, right? In many different
24/7.
Correct. On our social media networks, et cetera, you open it up and you how many likes did I get, et cetera, that's pinging your brain and giving you the dopamine in that moment as well. And I think also we live in a dopamine starved, in some ways, world in which people are more lonely than they've ever been. Social networks and cultures are more separate and disparate than they've ever been. A sense of belonging has been lost radically for most people. And then all of the people, whether we want to say, like Marx said about spirituality or religion, that it was the opiate of the people. Well, if you begin, as we've seen, a secularization, right, of our society occurring, people are not getting that opiate. You can call it what you want, but that sort of feel-good connectivity, spirituality, a higher power, a feeling of sense of belonging and purpose. If you don't have that, well, then you better believe people are going to be searching for dopamine in other places where it can now be more harmful to themselves. And so I think there are a lot of lonely, sad, depressed people who are reaching for these food-like substances that are addictive in nature. And so that's the first thing I always say to people when they reach for those foods is I say, why? Tell me more.
Emotional.
What's going on? Right. How's your life? Yeah. Where are you? Where's your joy level? Right. Where's your satisfaction level? Where's your enthusiasm level? And then all the other stuff. Where's your sleep? Where is your exercise regimen? What are you doing for spirituality? And what food are you eating? Because we all need and want and should have some levels of dopamine. Right. And so when I went out for my run last night, definitely long day. I was tired. I was a little depressed. I was a little out of it. Right. And I went for a run. At the end of the run, I felt great. I felt energized. I was ready. Right. And so then when I sat down for my little avocado rolls with a nice big glass of squeezed carrot juice, it was like, oh, this was wonderful, just what I needed. But had I eaten that in my depressed, unhappy, fatigued, tired state without the dopamine in my run, maybe I would have been more like, okay, what's next? Right? I need more dopamine. Because let's say we need this much dopamine, we've got to get it from somewhere. And where is it coming from? And so we need to fill our bucket with health promoting sources of that dopamine.
Right.
And if you don't fill your bucket with those things, you'll reach for whatever it takes. Right?
It's true.
I think that's crucial for all of us, right? As we go through life in making sure. I mean, I see it in older folks all the time who are in their, let's say, 70s, 80s, and 90s who say, I'm not finding joy in my work, in my exercise, in my sex life, and whatever, perhaps. So I'm just going for food. And I see them, right? I go out for dinner and they're sitting there with their large bellies over a table, drizzling cheese sauce down off their, pasta. And I go, wow. And then they kind of slowly work their way back to the door, right? Constipated and unwell. And I go, gosh, like that's not what it's meant to be. I mean, I saw my grandfather in his 70s and 80s, literally, he could play multiple hours of tennis at a time and, work out every morning and all the rest and, beat me even when I was 12 years old in tennis. I mean, it was crazy. So, the reality is health comes from healthy living, but we need to make sure that we know ourselves, right?
Yes.
That we know where we are and how we're wired. And so maybe next time, right, that person comes up with the case of whatever for you, go, no, I'm good, and go grab your blueberries and some dates instead, right, or whatever. So you get a lower level hum that doesn't create all of that, feedback loop.
Well, my husband's heard about this enough, so he does not bring them home anymore because I shared it with on other people and
right, of course, yeah.
So he got the message. He's got the message. And
he's
very supportive, but he doesn't understand. It's like like trying to run an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting unless you're a reformed alcoholic.
Right,
you don't understand.
Absolutely.
Almost like a monkey on your back in terms of the food and the addiction of it. And, you can argue whether it is, a quote, to the technical term of addiction, but I'm telling you right now, it is there.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It is like a monkey on your back. And, and there's some things that, like even still today, I mean, I've been plant-based for 10 years and I'm 100%. I mean, But there's times like and my home, I call it my wellness center, because that's where my wellness starts, is from my kitchen, from my house.
Right.
And, stuff, processed food doesn't come into my house. I don't buy it. I don't support it. But if I'm at a party and there is a magical bowl of Cape Cod potato chips in front of me, I'm only human. I'm only human.
Right.
So, and I do try to do the things like you talked about. I bring my own food so then I can have something as a defense. And literally, I'm eating before I go to these kind of events. I'm eating like literally as we're pulling in the driveway.
Right.
And I'm eating carrots and celery so that it's like literally like right to here, and I can't fit in another bite.
Yeah.
But, and I've learned these strategies and techniques, but it's still there. And my husband, God bless him, sticks right by my side.
Right.
And he'll smack out of my hand, anything that I pick up. And he's like, no.
And I think that's why it's so crucial to know ourselves, right? And then what you're doing so effectively is you're setting yourself up for success, right? Because like you said, here you are 10 years in and you've lost all this weight, you've been so healthy, right? And you're feeling so good. And so again, I say to people all the time, we're not looking for perfection. You're looking for excellent health. And that is a daily process. And that's okay. Not in an obsessive, compulsive way, but in a way in which you say, my health matters and thus I'm laying my life out to be successful. And so, it's kind of funny. I remember well in, high school and college where people would say, oh, come on, man, let's not go to class. Let's go off and do whatever. And I go, yeah, no, I actually want to get a good GPA. So go have fun, right? Like, no. But why? Because I recognized what mattered to me and what was very important. And I recognized that if I went off and did that, I could not also prioritize this.
Right.
So when you say, look, I've now prioritized, I do this before the thing, I bring food, I do that, you're showing, wow, you prioritize this so much that of course that's what you do, right? And so that's the beauty of it, is kind of saying, so even if you ate a few potato chips, you go, yeah, but I ate so much other stuff earlier, full of fiber and all the rest, I'm just going to poop it out, not a big deal. Versus sometimes I see people who say, I was doing so well until, right? Until blank, right? The bar mitzvah, the baptism, the party, this.
And then you spiral out of control.
Right. And it's like, wait, until what? Until what? You ate some unhealthy food. Let's move back and eat more healthy food. Right. So instead of this, I'm on a moving vehicle, right? I'm on a wagon and I dropped off. No, you're not on a moving vehicle. You're just walking down the street. And if you ate something unhealthy, now pick up something that's healthy. Done. And that's where it's crucial, I think, for your listeners, and I know for my folks that I speak with, to recognize, A, it's not about perfection, and B, it's not like you did some horrific sin by eating something unhealthy, and now you're a sinner and you're a bad person, and there needs to be all that. And it's like, no, stop. Right. And that's crucial because we want to weave in this emotion into eating, but we need to unwind some of the emotional content with food.
Right.
And say,
there's a lot of emotions that go with
that. Yes. And that's where people can become too obsessive and too fearful and anxious. And it's like, whoa, eat your food and let's move forward. Right. And recognize what your real goal is. Right. And the real goal is not to be neurotic. The real goal is to be healthy. Right. And health comes from healthy living. Let's lay it out. Let's make it happen. And you can do it. Right.
It's true. And sometimes, once you clean your system out, they call it McDougall's revenge. And I had this, and sometimes that helps a little bit because, like, for example, I was tutoring after school. This was a May Day, and I carry my food with me, and I did not plan to tutor after school. I was going to come home and have dinner. So I went to this house, and it was a May Day, because I teach chemistry, and he was having a chemistry test and needed a lot of help. So when I left the house, and they had been cooking, so, I could smell the food, and it was triggering, I got really hungry, which is the worst thing you can do. So I stopped and I saw a bagel place and I said, okay, I'm just going to go in. My intent was to go in and get a toasted multigrain bagel. That was it. That was my intent. And then the guy says to me, we have a new cream cheese and it's made with nuts, walnuts and cinnamon and raisins and honey. And do you want some of that? And I'm like, I couldn't even stop myself. Yes. And he slathered it on like a 1/2 inch thick. Oh my God. I ate it like I'd just been released from prison for 10 years. And I didn't get down the road 10 minutes. I had to pull over to the side of the road. I thought someone had taken a samurai sword and was sticking it through my stomach. I got home and I literally crawled up the stairs and laid on the bed in a fetal position and started mooing. And my husband comes home and he's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I ate cream cheese. Have I had cream cheese since then? No. I remember the pain.
Right.
And they call it McDougal's revenge, and it's real.
Yeah.
It's real.
Well, I mean, our bodies want to feel well, and right. And when you fill them up with junk, and for the person who's been eating well for a while, you start taking it for granted, what it feels like to feel good. That's what I love from people who do like my 4-week detox. They come back and say, oh, wow, I like my hands don't hurt and my knees don't hurt and I'm not waking up full of phlegm in the morning. I go, how much fun is that, right? And they're like, yeah, I'd forgotten. I didn't realize like that I was always feeling off. And it's just, that's the whole point, you know? So that's the greatest, I think, kind of return on your investment are those little, you know, sort of intangibles of just feeling good in your skin, feeling well. And why? Again, this is so crucial. I always say the end goal is not to be plant-based. The end goal is to be healthy and to be out living the life you want to be as the best teacher or best plumber or best politician or best, you know, bicyclist or whatever it might be, and having these adventures and changing the world. And food is your fuel, you know. So it's not to be obsessive about food. That's not the goal. But you don't want diseases that need not exist to be holding you back and compromising the environment, the world, et cetera. Yeah.
Well, and I think we've got a huge issue coming up. I mean, on both ends of the spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, we've got people who can't remember themselves. Their CPU is damaged. You know, the beta amyloid plaques blocking, you know, all the receptors, and they can't pull back their memory. So on one end of the spectrum, we've got that. On the other end of the spectrum is autism.
Right.
And, you know, growing up, I never heard of autism. I never saw an autistic child. It wasn't until the 90s that I saw my first autistic child.
Right.
And now it's 1 out of 68.
Yeah.
What? So at one end of the spectrum, we've got kids who can't function in society. The other end of the spectrum, we've got people who don't even know who they are and cannot take care of themselves. And then we've got us in between in this middle kind of Oreo sandwich kind of thing. Right. And we're dealing with both ends of these spectrums. What a huge cost this is going to have to society.
Yeah.
Huge. Right. I just watched my mother-in-law who went in the nursing home at 72. And this is, I think, one of the biggest driving forces for me is because I want to be out hiking, biking, kayaking. I just started roller skating. I got these cool skates, you know. Anyway, so I started roller skating again. I want to be doing that up on Cape Cod until the day I pass from this planet. Right. And, you know, and I feel for her. She went in at 72 years of age, and average lifespan in the nursing home with dementia is 5 to 8 years. And she went in, it cost $4,000 a month. We had to prove that we could pay for 5 to 8 years out of pocket, okay, before they would accept us. We had to prove before she could go into the home. And then by the time she died at 79, 7 years in the nursing home, it was up to $9,000 a month. Right. Who has put aside this kind of money for this? Yeah. It wiped out, you know, pretty much my in-laws.
Right. Everything. Right.
Yeah. It did. Anyway.
No, absolutely. It's a travesty. And you know that the leading reason to be admitted to a hospital and to be admitted to a nursing facility are diseases related to blood flow. And, you know, and that's, you know, so heart attacks, strokes, you know, those sorts of things. And of course, we know that dementia, there's a strong relationship to blood flow and perfusion to the brain as well. Right. So, I mean, this is, you know, from every angle, whether it be from pediatric illnesses to, you know, the diseases closer to the grave, as you're referring to, we know that healthy living can radically influence so many of these diseases. I think it's important to be honest and always say that, you know, again, life, bad things can happen to good people no matter what we do. Right. But certainly the diseases, if you look at the epidemiologic and then the hands-on actual interventional studies with plant-based nutrition, the markers of disease and all the rest radically improve across the board for all the common diseases we're talking about. So 1 out of every $8 is spent on type 2 diabetes in all of healthcare. And yet we know that 95% of the time that's a completely preventable disease. Oh. So, you know, so I think we have such a gift, and it's the gift that you're sharing with your viewers about how powerful they are to radically reduce and alter their disease risk. And that's what this message is about, though it's a joyful message. A lot of people say to me, you're always so happy about sharing this. And I say, Well, because it's a joyful message. It's an exciting message to say to people, you don't need to be fat, sick, and nearly dead all the time, right? And to feel like that. So like the guy I saw today, I mean, I tried to use every persuasion I could for him. He came in with a belly, he's 60 years old, has a belly that looks like he's maybe 6 months pregnant. And I said, he's got a very attractive wife who's well put together and all the rest. It's always funny to see that dichotomy between whether it be the wife that way or the husband that way. It's, you see it different couples. And I just said, I joked them. I said, well, you've got this good-looking girlfriend. I said, as his wife of 20-something years. And I said, so do you really feel like, you're maximizing your overall health? Do you have anything that would inspire you to want to be better? And he's like, well, her, kind of thing, da, da, da. And, how can we use his desire to feel well and be well? He's on 6 or 8 medications, all the common disease ones.
Well, for men, it's pretty easy. You just use that little golden carrot about erectile dysfunction, and you just use that little carrot right there, and that's gonna that
can be a powerful motivator, right?
That is right there,
right? Yeah. So finding what works for each person,
right? Well, you posted a picture, and this blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. It was 2 plasmas. One was from a vegan. And you could literally see through the syringe. And the other one you said was taken from somebody who just had like a ham and cheese with mayo sandwich like an hour before. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so in my practice, I do a lot of what's called regenerative medicine. So platelet-rich plasma, stem cells, things of that kind to help to heal sports-type injuries or osteoarthritis, et cetera. And so platelet-rich plasma is where we take a person's blood, spin down the growth factors, and extract them out and use them in an effort to stimulate healing in an area. And so as a result, we often end up with plasma, which is the liquid component of the blood. And it's fascinating for me to see when we spin it down. I and my staff, we always talk about, hey, what did they have for lunch, kind of a thing. Because you can see it very clearly. And the woman you're mentioning, it had a Cuban sandwich, and it was just, extremely lipophilic. Just full of lipids, of fat, cloudy white stuff you couldn't see through.
I know. You could not see the lines through the syringe.
That's right.
To the other side. It was that cloudy.
And people are running that through their bloodstream meal after meal. And I think that's what I use that moment, actually, when I have that blood spun like that, and I show this to the patients, and I say, let's talk about this, because your need that I'm treating is not what's going to kill you. It's that heart, right? And just, people get it when they really see a visual like that, and they can go, wow, that's going through my bloodstream. And so, the studies at Johns Hopkins that looked at vasodilatation or dilation or open up of blood vessels after a meal show that a single high-fat, high-cholesterol meal impairs blood flow through blood vessels by 50% for 4 hours after each meal. And that's radical. So, you have the high-fat, breakfast burrito from McDonald's for breakfast, and you have a snack of a Twix bar for, midday, and then at lunch you have, a Wendy's chicken sandwich or something. Your entire day, your blood vessels are constricted, and so 4 hour after 4 hour after 4 hour. And so there's no wonder people are running toxic well water through their pipes. And as a result, they're plaquing out and getting congested and corroding. And instead of running quality filtered water through their pipes. And the good message for us who are adopting a healthier program is that we're running clear, crisp fluid that doesn't plaque out. And this is why, Esselstyn and others like to say, I love his quote, heart disease is a foodborne illness that need not exist. And that is because you remove the insult to the body, which is all this, cholesterol and fat, et cetera, and you're not clogging up the internal lining of your arteries. So, what you eat matters. It's radically powerful for your health. And so just as some things are less than good for you, others are extremely good for you. And we want to be reaching for the health-promoting foods and avoiding those that just block up our arteries and give us diseases that nobody likes. So it's fun to see when we spin down the blood, and it's a powerful, powerful thing. And so for those of you out there who get your, go get your cholesterol levels checked and take a look at them, right? Or even go have your blood spun down in a lab and look at it yourself. It's fascinating to see.
It's a powerful picture. Powerful picture. Well, I can pretty much guess, but did your diet help you achieve your #1 ranking in tennis?
So absolutely, I think, and you see more and more right now, especially aerobic athletes, but also strength athletes, but especially all the cardiovascular athletes, the greatest long distance runners and triathletes and the rest, really all adopting more of a plant-based approach. And there are 4 or 5 reasons for that. One is, as I mentioned, plants increase blood flow rather than reducing blood flow to our joints, to our muscles, and our tendons. So you have more energy, can go longer and farther. And as a result, you have less aches and pains afterwards as well, because you have better blood flow to your tissues. So you can wash out the acid that builds up during exercise.
True.
In addition, plant-based foods lack arachidonic acid, or they have very little of it. And arachidonic acid is a parent molecule that breaks down to what are called prostaglandins, which are the molecules that damage and injure your joints and create pain on a daily basis with arthritis. So you have less of that parent molecule, so you have fewer prostaglandins, so you have less pain. And in addition, plant foods, especially deeply colorful ones, what we call anthocyanin-rich foods like the blueberries and the tart cherries and the pomegranates and the deep greens, they're loaded with these micronutrients that are powerful for overall performance. You look at the studies, people consuming some tart cherry juice or pomegranate juice, beet juice, for a couple days before the race, all do better and have less soreness. So eating all those plant-based foods allowed me to go longer, harder, faster, and with less time needed for recovery. And we're seeing it now across the globe, more and more athletes adopting this way of eating.
Well, I saw it with my son. My son was into wrestling, and he was very good. But on the days of the competitions, and they're all day. Oh my God. You'd get there at 8 o'clock in the morning. You wouldn't leave till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And you would hear throughout the day, the pizza has arrived. Come and get hot, fresh pizza. And they would have other things that they would sell, and I would not give my son money. We brought a cooler. And the first year we were transitioning that he was wrestling in high school. And the second year we were completely plant-based. So would bring coolers, and he would just eat out of the cooler. So as soon as he wrestled, he got something to eat, and then he wouldn't wrestle again for another 45 minutes to an hour or more, depending upon the competition. But as the competition got down towards the end, you were now wrestling. 1 and 2 were wrestling, 3 and 4 were wrestling, 5 and 6 were wrestling and competing against each other. And one of the things that I would consistently see was his competitors would go, and one of the strategies is you get out of the ring, okay? And they would stop the competition and then reset, and you'd come back, which would give you about 10 or 15 seconds to catch your breath. And I would see them going like this and putting their arms up above their head to try and just stretch their lungs out. Their chest would be just heaving his opponents. I never saw my son do that. Mm-hmm. And I look back on that and I think, oh my God, it's because, he was eating plant-based. He was good. He had good technique. Don't get me wrong, but he also was not clogging his arteries, and he was also being able to carry the oxygen that his muscles were needed. And I see it a lot again, in high school. I teach chemistry, and the kids know. They know. So I had several of my students. One girl was quite a soccer player. Really, really good. And she was on the field most of the game, except when her muscles, she would just, the calf muscle, and just tighten up. And she'd be on the sidelines trying to dig the muscle and trying to stretch it back out. And so she came to me and said, what can I do? So we talked about when the game is, what time to eat, what time you want to make sure you're hydrated, and she followed everything. After that, no more problems. Same thing with one of my students was a basketball, and he came to me and he says, the coach has to pull me off the floor at least once a game. Can I fix that? And I said, absolutely. And we talked about his diet. We tweaked it. We fixed it. He started doing that. No more after that. And he's like, I feel so much better. I can run. I have no issues now. I'm like, right? It's the food. Change the food.
Powerful medicine.
It is, right? So was it difficult when you were traveling for tennis to eat, plant-based?
No, things are what you make of them, right? And so, was it difficult? Well, you packed in advance. You made sure you at least, even to this day, right? When I travel for anything, it's a commitment to yourself, right? So you can either look at it, oh, this is challenging and this is hard. I think I put a video on Instagram the other day where I said, oh, I was, you're in there washing your vegetables and making your meal, and you can sit there and complain about all the work you're having to do, or you can not do it, eat unhealthy, get diseases you don't want, and then you can complain about having to see your doctor all the time and take drugs. So what's it going to be? So again, the glass is half full or glass half empty. I mean, that's the reality about all this stuff. It's you make a decision and you pursue it. And yes, it takes commitment. I mean, I could go to med school and every day complain about how hard the classes were and how many hours it was and how or you can just go do it and recognize it's for a goal that you have and it's a worthwhile goal. So move on. So stop whining and do it. Yes, you had to think ahead and be well prepared. But was it a big deal? No.
Okay.
It is what
Eric
it is.
Adams, he's the Brooklyn Borough president. I don't know if you know him. I think he's running for mayor of New York City. He had type 2 diabetes, and he's doing some amazing things up in the Brooklyn Borough, and just incredible. Yeah. But he has, when he goes traveling, he has one suitcase that has his Instant Pot. He's got a little mini kitchen set up in this suitcase. So he's got some things that he, spices and, some grains or whatever that he packs into this carry-on. And then as soon as he lands, wherever he's going, he goes to the grocery store and buys a couple of things and comes back to his hotel room and he cooks in his room.
Yeah, there's so many options though. Growing up as a kid, right, we didn't have a lot of money. So when we'd travel, we would always, go to the local supermarket. We'd be washing our cucumbers at the kitchen sink in that motel, right, and that sort of stuff. And then nowadays, if you have the resources and the finances, you can always, in most places, find something to eat that's palatable. And if you can't, well, then maybe you go a meal or two without eating much, right? Now, if you're an athlete, that doesn't work. But if you're just a business person traveling, well, there you got some intermittent fasting. Drink some water and move on. It's like you're not gonna die, right? And so, so for me, it's like when I go to speak at conferences, you mentioned I was at the NAHA conference as I had the pleasure of seeing you there not too long ago. I traveled on the flight and I had apples in my carry-on and, a handful of some seeds and a few other things. So that it was like, well, if, everything shuts down, I can't find anything, I'm ready to go, right? But as it turned out, right, I found a green smoothie place in the Atlanta airport and I found another thing at another place, and I was fine. So if you have the money, right, you can go to any Asian place and get steamed white rice if you need to, right, and steamed vegetables, and you're going to be fine, right? You can go to a million places these days and get something.
But you have to be careful. I'm extraordinarily salt sensitive.
Right.
And
absolutely.
My husband and I were going to a restaurant. I'm not going to say which, but we were in there, and it's Mexican kind of restaurant. Right. And you can go in and pick whatever you want, and you go through, and okay. And thank goodness the line was long, because as we were going through the line, oh my God, I started, you could pick, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this. And you could see how much fat, how much oil, and how much, what was in there. And I said to my husband, we can't stay here. And he's like, why? And I said, this will kill me. I will be in the hospital tonight if I eat this. Right. Because the amount, it was 2.5 times the amount of salt per day in that one meal.
I like to separate people into the groups of people who are looking for prevention and just overall health. They have no major disease history. They're otherwise well, so on and so forth. And then the people that have more of sensitivities, allergies, or have a significant disease process that they've worked to reverse, and they're more on the cusp, et cetera. And that's where it's crucial, like you said, know yourself, know your history, and know where you are. Because, so eating, for example, going out to a fast food place, let's say Chipotle, for example, you get a veggie burrito. You may get a lot of healthy overall food, but you're also getting the oil and you're getting, like you said, 2,400 milligrams of salt, which is right in one meal and one burrito. And
oh my God.
Yeah. So just being aware of that. So if you have high blood pressure issues, if you have food sensitivities, if you have a tendency to retain fluid, or if you have that addictive personality that's going to eat the oil and then go south, you need to know that. But, and that's where it's crucial that then you prepare appropriately. And then for those crowd who's just all, they want to go plant-based because they know it's good for the environment, good for the planet. Well, sure, just be aware, you're still getting more salt than is ideal, more oil than is ideal, but certainly better option than the bacon and cheeseburger over here.
Oh, absolutely. No question. Yeah. But I mean, you do have to understand, I call it peeling back the layers of an onion, because as I started to lose my weight, because I've lost at this point over 100 pounds, and you start to learn about your body, about yourself.
Absolutely.
And like I had chronic headaches forever. And I was constantly, I had a bottle of ibuprofen in my car, in my purse, in my desk at work, in my nightstand, because, oh my God, I had headaches all the time. Now I come to realize that they were high blood pressure headaches.
Right.
And now that I've got my blood pressure under control, I don't ever have headaches anymore. And it's wonderful. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
So, well, what about medications? Do you still prescribe them?
So so it's important to remember, so two parts of my practice, right? One is going to be lifestyle measures. For those people who come in for lifestyle measures, the majority of them, their goal is to get off medications. They want to avoid medications. And so I try to help them where we can to be successful in that goal. Then I also have, of course, a majority of my day-to-day practice in clinic, as an orthopedic sports medicine guy, is going to be folks who just walked in off the street, who have back pain, neck pain, knee pain, shoulder pain. They don't necessarily know that I'm all into lifestyle. And so for those individuals, right, kind of we're going to meet them where they are and use medications where they're appropriate, so because again, most of what I would use is going to be about managing pain or inflammation. It's not cardiometabolic disease. So I'm not starting people on diabetic meds or high blood pressure meds. In my clinic as a sports medicine physician, right, we're treating the knee pain or the shoulder pain or the back pain or the neck pain, et cetera. So I always try to skew our treatments in the direction of natural, non-invasive measures. But there are times and places where the use of injectable medications in particular may have their place for pain relief to allow people to be more functional.
Well, what advice can you give to someone who's beginning to change to a whole food, plant-based living lifestyle?
Well, I think number one is have fun with it and celebrate colors and flavors and have an adventure with it, discover new things. And if you're fearful of new adventures and discovery, then fine, keep it simple. But the reality is have fun. And I think before anyone makes major changes, I encourage them to sit down and say, what are their personal goals with health and why are they making this decision? And
you have to know your why.
Absolutely. And
that's a huge part of my program.
Yeah. And if you don't really know why you're making these decisions and what your goals are with it, you're not ready to start. And so, because some people just say, well, I don't know, I just want to eat more fruits and vegetables. Fine, just add more fruits and vegetables in then. You're not really on a program, you're just eating more fruits and vegetables. But if you say, I want to reverse a disease, well, then you need to be serious. Right? It can't be, you can have fun and be playful still, but it needs to be real, meaningful, radical change that results in real, radical, meaningful results. And so sometimes I have patients I see who come back and say, well, I've eaten a few more sweet potatoes, a little more lettuce, a little more of this, but the weight hasn't come down, my blood pressures haven't improved. I go, well, we're surprised why. It's like, that's not going to give you the results you want. So it's crucial that you identify the why, but then you say, what am I doing? And is it really on par with what my goals are? Because if you set this goal and what you're doing is down here, it ain't going to work. It's kind of like you as a teacher, you say to the student, if you want to get that A on the test, you have to be studying here so that on test day, you're right where you need to be, versus if you want the A and you're studying here once a week, a few problems, you're not going to get there on test day. No way you're going to get that A. So you're studying to get the D. And so we all have to ask ourselves that question. If I say that I want triple A, health, am I giving myself A++, treatment that will help me achieve that? And so making sure the two are on target. So what's your why? And then what is what you're doing on target with what your goals are? And then you just reevaluate that every once in a while and see. And if you're not achieving, like I had a lady the other day, she lost maybe 60 pounds or so. She got off almost all her medicines, but her blood pressure was still a little bit up. All her diabetic meds, her cholesterol meds, GERD meds, all that's all gone. But her blood pressure was still a little up. And I said, look, let's look at your waist hip circumference. Let's look at your BMI. And the reality was she still had another 50, 60 pounds to lose. And I said, so you're doing great. You're rocking the boat. Don't be frustrated with yourself, So once we get this additional weight off, I'm sure your blood pressure will be totally normal. And we're just not there yet. So let's keep going. Instead of being frustrated, like, oh, everything else is done so well. I was doing so great. Why is this not working? Well, whoa. Back up to the 30,000 foot view. Right. I like to tell people, be the architect of your own life and step back, look at the blueprints, look at what's happening over here, look at how the model of the house is being built, and say, oh, we're not there yet. The roof's not here yet, and I haven't put the shingles up. And this, once it's all there, then we can, be concerned, right? Where does this leak come from? Everything is so perfect. Why is there a leak? Yeah, we're not there yet. And if everything's all lined up and perfect, all the rest, and then there's the leak. Let's say, like, for example, the person who's been a plant-based whole food eater for 20 years and now suddenly has severe constipation, that's a concern. Because then you go, wait, what's going on? Did they in fact now have a cancer related to a chemical they were exposed to over years and that has now resulted in a gastrointestinal cancer? Because again, bad things can still happen, right? It's far less likely, far less common. The common diseases become uncommon, right? Is what happens. But weird, uncommon diseases can still occur from radiation exposure, from chemical exposures, toxins we're exposed to in the environment. And so, we want to make sure that we're acknowledging and being aware of these subtle changes. If there's a little leak and the house was looking perfect.
Well, and getting these toxins out of your life.
Yes.
I mean, like, for example, parabens. Oh my gosh. They're and they're in everything.
Yeah.
I mean, when you start looking, anything that you put on your skin, it's 26 seconds, it's in your bloodstream. 26 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, most shampoos and things like that contain neurotoxins. What? You're putting something that's harmful to my brain in a product that I'm going to use on my head.
Right.
And there's no regulation. So anyway, why is it important to let your doctor know that you're starting a plant-based lifestyle?
Because plant-based nutrition is radically powerful, and it could kill you if you're on medicines. But really, it'd be the medicines that are killing you.
Yeah.
Plant-based nutrition can be so radical that it can impressively drop your blood pressure, for example, in 2 weeks. Diabetic numbers can suddenly drop radically. And so if you're on multiple medications, so I had a great example of this the other day. I had a patient, morbidly obese, who came in. I got her on my 4-week detox. Within a week and a half, 2 weeks, her blood sugars were bottoming into the 50s and 60s. She was lightheaded all the time. And she called her primary care doctor, and they said, stop the radical diet.
Are you kidding me?
No. And I was like, and then she came back to see me about 6 months later for shoulder pain. And I was like, so how'd the healthy living go? Well, it was really weird. My blood sugars are dropping really low. And I said, so what'd you do? Oh, I stopped the program. I was like, oh, you didn't reduce your insulin? No. I was like, oh, are you kidding me? So her doctor had just totally misdirected her. And so she and I talked, and, she's gone back on the program now and is reducing her insulin. But it was just, so it's just. And
most doctors are not going to know that.
Right. And so that's the problem. So what I always tell people, if truly you're eating kind of what you and I encourage people to eat, right? Lots of food, fruits and veggies and beans and rice and all these amazing stuff. You're eating lots of calories. If your blood pressure is coming down and if your blood sugars are coming down, it's because your body's chemistry is normalizing. It is not because it's not because you're starving yourself or anything silly like this. So you need to make sure when you talk to your primary care doctor that you say, so I'm eating a healthy program, lots of fruits and vegetables, and I've noticed my numbers are coming down, my weight is coming down. Which medicine should I stop first? You don't say something like, oh, I'm doing a crazy detox. And, because if they're not an inquiring mind, right? Let's say they're busy and whatever else, they might just go, well, stop doing the detox, eat some normal food, and I'll see you soon. And so I had another example of that. A 77-year-old woman, African-American lady from the inner city, right? All the things that, according to our society, would say she's not the right person. She's old, to do healthy living. She's older. She's in a minority class. She has poor socioeconomic status. Yet when I saw her, it resonated with her about healthy living. I was seeing her for her back or her neck. I forget which. And I said, hey, try this for a couple of weeks. Try my detox, my healthy living program, right? Fruits and vegetables, etc. Right. And she went home and she did it. Within 2 weeks, she felt amazing. However, her blood pressures were dropping radically. And so she got lightheaded on a third week and she passed out. She ended up being in the ER. And the ER doctor, what are you doing? She said, I'm doing a detox. And they said, stop that radical detox. You're hurting your kidneys and you're hurting your body. So she left and she called her doctor. And her doctor, she told her, and the doctor said the same thing. Stop this detox. And I said, so tell me what medicines you were still on. She was still taking her 3 blood pressure medicines that she no longer needed. One of them a diuretic, which of course, if you don't have enough blood pressure, it damages your kidneys. So, on this healthy living program, I encourage people to be on. They're drinking 64 ounces a day of water and they're drinking all this or eating all these fruits and vegetables. There's nothing that's going to cause you to be dehydrated or damage your kidneys. Quite the opposite. And so what was happening was that she didn't need these drugs anymore. And as a result, her body, and so she called me. It was funny. She called me. She goes, Dr. Esser, I don't know what to do. Do I go back on your program? I don't want to take the drugs. I felt so good on your healthy living program. What do I do? I said, well, you go back on the healthy living program and you immediately, within a week, as soon as your numbers are dropping, call your doctor. And you don't say you're doing a detox. You say, I'm eating lots of fruits and vegetables and my blood pressures have started to come down. What should I do? Right? And so it's so frustrating, to kind of see when other physicians who are not aware of the power of health.
I know.
And so, so I think it's crucial, though, that patients recognize that what they're going to do, if they do it right, can be radically powerful, especially if they are toxic and sick. And so within 2 to 3 weeks, they will have radical results. And so they need to be ready for that. And they need to know that as soon as their blood pressure or blood sugars drop by 10%, they need to call their primary, whoever that is, whoever prescribes medicine to them, and say, my numbers are coming down. I've been eating lots of fruits and vegetables, and I'd like to start coming down off my meds. Which one should I start first? But you need to almost handhold the doctor, because the reality is, in medical school, we learned all of the reasons to put people on medicines. We learned almost never when to take them off.
I know.
So
my doctor looked at me because my thyroid started to go, and she looked at me and she handed me a prescription, and I noticed that it had four refills, and I'm like, so doc, how long am I going to be on this? There's 4 refills on here. And she said, the rest of your life? And I'm like, no. I'm not a pill person. She said, well, once the thyroid goes, I've never seen in my 25 plus years practice, I've never seen a thyroid heal itself until now. Yeah. So, and she still, in the beginning, at first it was, well, I think it was bad blood work in the beginning. Yeah. I don't get any credit. None.
Right.
No. Anyway, do you recommend people doing blood work before they begin a whole food plant-based?
I think it can be very powerful for people to do blood work, because it gives a sort of objective sort of information for people to see the radical results. So inflammatory markers and cholesterol levels and all the common things in the blood, sugar numbers, et cetera, all these things can radically improve, and very, very quickly for the majority of people. So it's fun to see them, and to see them quickly improve. Yeah.
Well, I had said to my doctor, I wanted to do the CRP, the C-reactive protein test. And I did it, and my markers were high because I had inflammation in my body. And I said, in 6 months, I want to do it again. Why? I want to see if they change. Well, in my 25 years of practice, I've never seen it change. It's not going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
And they changed.
Yeah.
And her response, this is a pattern I'm noticing, it was probably bad blood work for the first time.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, How about, I'm going to die because I'm not going to get enough protein.
Right.
I'm going to shrivel up in the corner and yeah.
Yeah. For me, that really depends upon who the individual is, what my response is, right? So the well-intentioned physician that truly believes, or the well-intentioned lay person who truly believes that's the truth, I sit down with them and we go through the data and the evidence and all the rest. For the individual who, is just in trying to poke the bear, if you will, and create conflict, I don't even waste my time. It's kind of a foolish point to debate or discuss. Yeah. So,
well, my response usually is, do you even know how much protein you're supposed to have in a given day?
Right.
And that usually stops them dead in their tracks because they don't.
Right.
And they have no clue, especially the kids. Oh, it makes me crazy with the whey protein.
Right.
They know better than
right. I think there's so many different responses that you can have, right? The humorous one, the educated response, the sarcastic, whatever. I mean, they're just, for me, it's just for the person who truly you can tell they don't know and they're inquiring, will I get enough protein? Then you go with that, somewhere. But the person who's just, you can tell they have an agenda. It's just silly, kind of thing. So whether it be the humorous little off notes of, it seems to be enough protein for the silverback gorilla and the elephant and the, all the other massive herbivores on our planet, right? Or whether it be, like you said, a more scientific approach, so kind of I encourage people to have multiple answers to that. I think you and I, and likely the majority of your viewers are already aware of the literature that clearly demonstrates that eating a well-balanced, diverse, whole food, plant-based program gives you more than adequate total protein needs for the body. And that the greatest malady of our society when it comes to nutrition right now, outside of the absence of micronutrients, would be the excess of animal-based protein that is in our diet, that is, so conducive to a cancerogenic as well as a cardiovascular disease sort of environment. So, so it's just... it's just silly. I mean, again, like we said, 2 things. People like to hear good things about their bad habits. So if you can tell me I can eat all of the ribeye and chicken, et cetera, I possibly can have, then I'm happy. As well as there's something kind of very validating about kind of hearing information that just says that you can continue on the path you're already on. Yeah. So it's.
What about calcium? Am I going to, because I'm not eating dairy products, and
Right.
of course there's, that's where we have to get our calcium. Am I
Right.
going to have issues there?
Yeah, I mean, the marketing industry has done such a great job of interrelating the kind of a white mustache with calcium. I mean, we've all kind of got sucked into that if it's white, it must have calcium in it. And so that's been a really great branding strategy over time. Unfortunately, the science
We
does
need
not.
to get their marketing people.
That's right. Oh, absolutely. That's at the heart of this. I mean, it's about the delivery of the information. And so I think that's where we ourselves need to improve the way that we deliver information in a way that is conducive, attractive, appealing, not just aggressive, demanding, or whatever otherwise. And so, as you're suggesting, we know that deep green vegetables have more bioavailable calcium than milk does gram per gram. And we know that in cultures that consume more alkaline-based foods, they have lower rates of osteoporotic diseases. And we know that even in cultures that are strictly vegan, where there might be a subtle increase in osteopenia or osteoporosis, we see still a much lower fracture risk. And so, the markers that we sometimes take for granted as markers of risk in health don't necessarily correlate as well when you improve other health markers like strength and balance and coordination and reaction time, and things that we should be focused on as well, all of the physical fitness parameters that go hand in hand, right? That the two pillars of health end up being movement and food. And so, we need to take that concept that, the milk, the breast milk of another animal is somehow required by human health is of course outrageous when we know there's not a single other creature on earth that voluntarily drinks the milk of another creature. It's just,
you're drinking the lactating fluid of another species.
Right. It just makes no sense. So it doesn't pass any of the tests. So, for me,
supplements.
Yeah. So I think that supplements may have their place few and far between for the right individual, the right disease process. I think that for some people eating more restrictive diets who may not be getting adequate quantities of things like zinc, let's say, or selenium, et cetera, that it may be valuable to replete a little bit at certain times. But certainly health does not, on average, come from encapsulated products derived from the rainforest or from a GMP triple manufactured, site. The majority of health comes from the food we eat, the exercise we get, the emotions we carry, the toxins we avoid. But an occasional, obviously a strict plant-based vegan over decades or over years should attend to their B12 levels. And so taking a regular B12 supplement and checking your B12 every couple years is probably of value. I checked mine the other day. I think it was 896 and the normal is 300 to 900 or 1,000 or whatever, somewhere there. So totally fine range. And so, vitamin D is a little more debatable whether we should be supplementing or purely just getting 15 to 20 minutes of sun exposure, right, during the midday on our arms, legs.
Well, I also think the vitamin D level was just raised, not that long ago. So people that weren't vitamin D deficient all of a sudden are now vitamin D deficient.
Right.
And,
Yeah, I think, people there's a shamanism in our mindsets in which people get sucked into the mindset that something that's given to me in a product that comes from somewhere must be particularly healthy for me, and that I have to buy or purchase. And that's what's the shame. I mean, it was funny. I was talking to a guy the other day. He was working to set up a healthy living center with exercise and nutrition, and he gave up after 3 years, and it failed because of how challenging it was. Because he said people, on average, don't want to pay money to learn how to eat food and exercise. They'd rather be buying a product. If I sell products, they buy lots of them. And that's a shamanism. And we have to be careful in our own hearts that we need to avoid that. And we need to stamp that out where it exists in our life and work to change it in our culture. Because we need to give power back to the person. And the person is where the greatest power is first.
Yes.
And when things occur, we want them, the magic of modern medicine to help us where it can. And that's where it's most appropriate. You fall and break your hip and it's sticking through the skin. Please, exactly,
yeah.
get your surgery.
I broke my wrist, fell off the ladder.
Yep.
Don't give me a copy of the China study and say good luck to you.
Right, exactly.
Thank goodness I was able to go and have it fixed. I mean, wow. And I did a good job. My wrist was like this. And I was like,
that's crucial.
That's not normal.
And that's where the beauty of medicine comes in. And we should recognize we're not in opposition. What we're talking about with healthy living is the best medicine. Lifestyle interventions are the most powerful, scientifically validated ways of addressing human health. And they should be the foundation of all healthcare. And so, when it comes the next level, I say that supplementation for me is tier 3. Tier 1 is, the healthy living lifestyle. Tier 2 are the modalities, things like massage, physical therapies, chiropractic, acupuncture, osteopathic work, etc. And then tier 3 end up being supplementation. And so, I think that supplements have their place, but they're not the answer, and they should not be perceived as the answer. I'm going to go take supplements while eating my McDonald's, right? That's not healthy living. And so many people fall into that habit. They'll go out and buy their Juice Plus, right? Or buy their green smoothies and think that that's the answer. And it's not. I enjoy every once in a while taking a nice green powder. I don't know. I just like it. But I don't think that it's the cure for my ill health, right? It's just a treat. It's a fun thing. Or a wheatgrass shot here and there, right? That's not the fix. It's a fun, playful thing that's unique and different and may give me some micronutrients I don't get otherwhere.
Right. Well, would you share any other ideas that can help people be successful eating whole food plant-based? And hopefully continue this lifestyle.
I think at the heart of it is creating a culture around yourself, identifying who the people are that will support you in this. You may be surprised that you have some friends already who themselves are very excited about eating healthfully. And reach out to those people, get to know them a little bit better. And get them on speed dial. Stay in touch, share recipes, share ideas, have meals together. So you can support
that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the next thing is, just continue to see it as what it is, which is a beautiful avenue to achieving your maximized and best overall health, and have fun with it. And don't see this as a diet or a short-term fix for something, but rather as a long-term commitment to your best health, to the most sort of empathetic way of living for animal life, and certainly the best way of living for our planetary health, as demonstrated again and again with all these new recent studies coming out. So I would just encourage all of your viewers out there to remember how powerful they are. And I think that's my greatest message to people always is you are the ones in control. You are radically powerful in your health. And take back that power. Take back that opportunity. Don't see it as a crutch or a cane or a cross that you bear, but rather see it as an opportunity and a gift that's just being sprinkled down on you, this opportunity to really take back your health and with radical ways through the personal choices you're making that start at the tip of your fork and with what your fingers and your feet do and your hips maybe do as well. And just get moving and grooving, have fun with the food, celebrate your health every day, every meal, and just continue to have fun with life. That's what this is about.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Esser, thank you so much. You are a fount of knowledge, and your experiences are just truly amazing. So,
well, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for all the work you're doing to transform lives. And, it's just a delight to see everything, all the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you. And look forward to connecting with you again at the NHA.
Take care.